Good. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday night council meeting. And welcome the councilors who are here and all the staff and Mr. Reporter over there. We'll start this evening with the public meeting, Planning Act. First of all, I'd like to begin this meeting with by acknowledging that we are gathered on the land that has been inhabited by indigenous people since time immemorial. We would like to recognize that we are on the Robinson Superior Treaty territory, and the land in which we are gathered today is a traditional territory that initially, especially we acknowledge the neighboring community of the Mishkon First Nations, to whom we have great respect. We also recognize the contributions of the indigenous people, including the Métis, in shaping and strengthening the community and the province of Ontario. For the agenda, we've got a resolution.
Moved by Councillor Chasson, second by Councillor Pilon, resolved that the agenda for the public meeting Planning Act scheduled for Tuesday, May 17, 2022 be approved as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Go to declaration of pecuniary interest and general nature of. Any? Seeing none, we'll move on to number 4, no announcements. We'll move right into new business, zoning bylaw amendment, basic building supply, 25 Broadway Avenue. Zoning bylaw, this is a public meeting under section 34 of the Planning Act for zoning bylaw amendment. The purpose of the proposed temporary zoning amendment is to rezone lands located at 25 Broadway Avenue to change the zoning on the subject lands from general commercial C1 to a multi-use residential RM2 townhouse, to permit the construction of a residential building containing a maximum of 7 residential units on the property. The applicant is requesting that the following zone standards apply to the property. Minimum requirement front yard is 0 meters. Minimum required exterior side yard is 0 meters. Minimum required interior side yard 3.0 meters. Minimum required rear yard 0 meters. Minimum dwelling unit area 45 square feet meters or 485 square feet. Maximum lot coverage 80%. Minimum off-street parking spaces, 7 off-street parking spaces shall be provided at 39 Broadway Avenue, lot 209, plan M27. Parking space size, minimum width 2.74 meters and minimum length 5.79 meters for each parking space. The request will permit a multi-unit residential dwelling with up to 7 dwelling units to be constructed on lot 150 plan M-27 with the above yard and parking requirements on the site as required by the zoning bylaw. It is noted that in order to appeal any decision of the Council of Ontario Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, the applicant must outline comments on concerns at the public meeting or submitted comments and concerns to the council in writing. Will the clerk please confirm the proper notice of zoning bylaw amendment that has issued and if any written comments are received?
Thank you, Mayor. And we do confirm that proper notice of the zoning bylaw amendment notice was provided as required under the Planning Act. We did receive 2 written letters of support for the application. The first was from the Algoma Health Unit, who wrote that they have no objection to the zoning bylaw request. The second was from a resident located on Wawa Street, Mr. Tarmo Poltma. And Tarmo does not object to the rezoning, but he wanted to make staff and council aware that there is an issue regarding his sewer line. The individual living at 18 Wall, Mr. Poldma, understands that his existing sewer line goes from his property and connects underneath the neighboring property located on Mackey Street. It doesn't connect to 25 Broadway. The pool hall, as I refer to it, or some would refer to it as the old liquor store, that is a separate lot known as Lot 150 Plan M27, which is the subject of the application tonight, or 25 Broadway. The property behind, closest to Wawa Lake, where you can see there were a garage and a residential unit. Some people refer to it as the former laundromat. That is a separate lot. That lot is already zoned residential. But what Mr. Poldma is pointing out is that his sewer connects into that existing building, and that in any redevelopment of this property, that sewer line would have to be disconnected and reconnecting to the municipal service in some arrangement. Our staff are aware of the issue, and we have talked to the applicant, John Stankovic, on behalf of Building Basic Supply, and that issue will be resolved as part of the redevelopment. He does not have concerns about the rezoning, but does want the sewer line situation resolved before the redevelopment takes place.
I will ask the applicant, John Stankovic, if he would want to say a few words to this application.
You refer to me, right? If I'm yes, okay. Good evening to everybody over there. I am one of the owners of Basic Building Supply that we applied for this zoning for this property on 25 Broadway, where we're gonna together actually redevelop to McKay, which is already residential zone. We are aware about this sewer actually, which is never properly connected on the first place. And last week I was over there and I had a meeting with health department and Wawa and the building inspector from municipality of the Wawa. And they gonna come up with the best solution for city, which we agree to be involved in a solution, whatever is going to be the best possible solution to do, because we are too interested, to all neighbors to be properly connected to sewer. Definitely, right? In the same time, because this is going to be new development, once when we start and we get approved, definitely we have to, and we will do new sewer line for this property, what we actually apply for 25 Broadway and to McKay. This means this issue has to be addressed, doesn't matter what, right? And we submit a site plan drawings, right? I don't know if council has a chance to see that. Just I think there's going to be a very nice project for Wawa, something new, something different. And we are looking forward to work with you on all issues if they appear now, if they have now, or it's going to appear during the construction period time. I'm going to appreciate to answer on any question what you have. Thank you.
Does any member of the council have any questions for the applicant? No questions? Well, at this time, I'd refer this matter back to staff. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, Mayor, the script hasn't been updated. Our building inspector did provide council with the report tonight, and the intention is that if there are no objections and council approves the application, that the bylaw proposing the amendment would go to council tonight. So I'm not sure if you wanted the building inspector to make any comment on the report he shared with council that does support the rezoning.
Go ahead, Kevin McCook.
So looking at the official plan and the zoning bylaw, council has the right to change the zoning of any property within the municipality. Because the property is underutilized at this time, my recommendation is that we go ahead with the rezoning.
questions for Kevin? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a question for Kevin, but I do have a question for John. John, I understand that the parking will be at 27 Broadway?
37.
Broadway? John, do you have a timeline on when, currently there's a building on that lot, is there not? Do you have a timeline on when that building will be taken down?
You asking on what property? 39 Broadway or 25?
39.
39.
39. This building actually we gonna try to save. That is not in a like how condition how is and look how it looks right now, because I don't know, it's very hard to explain you how this building is, because this was odd on this building from right hand side, like 7 or 8 feet, which we're gonna take down because there's no foundation, no nothing, right? This is not safe. Then have like some shed or whatever you're gonna call in behind, what takes like a lot of space over there, which we're gonna take down too. Just front, we would like to save. It's gonna be small building, which whatever it is, just we're gonna definitely like try to save this building over there like as much as we're gonna be able. We're gonna talk to and submit some permit to building department over there, and then it's gonna look like much nicer like than what is appearing like right now. We didn't go forward right now because I mean we have already prepared, just we're still waiting like to get decision on this rezoning of 25 Broadway, and then automatically next week or week after we're gonna come up with site plan and solution for 39 Broadway.
Thank you very much, John. I think your plan is very innovative and much needed for Wawa.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, John, well, thank you for your input, and what you're gonna do with these buildings is very interesting. I think we need some more living space in Wawa, and this will come up at the regular council meeting tonight. So the staff will be getting back to you on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. See you probably next time you're live. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll go to close the meeting. Close the meeting at 6:43.
Moved by Councillor Pino, resolved that the meeting closed at 6:43 PM.
All in favor? Motion carried.
Are you okay? Oh.
Okay, 6:45. Welcome, everybody. We're going to start the corporate planning meeting, Tuesday, May 17th. I want to call to order all members present. Here. We'll go into disclosure of community interest. See any? Seeing none, we move on to approval of the agenda. Can I get a mover?
Moved by Councillor Pino, seconded by Councillor Shakespeare. No,
That's for the
oh,
regular,
sorry.
just need a.
I
mover.
apologize.
Councillor Cannon? All in favor? Motion carried. Okay, we have delegations and presentations. We have a presentation on snow. The snow is gone.
Yes, I know. How happy are we?
Okay, we'll give you the floor.
All right, just 1 second here. All right, so a few council meetings ago, we had sort of addressed the residents on Maple Street had provided a letter with concerns about snow removal on their street. The letter outlined main concerns of the rate of speed of our large municipal vehicles, the frequency of use by the municipal vehicles, as well as the rate of snow removal on Maple Street. So to give the council maybe a bit of a better understanding of how our operations work during the winter time, we prioritize municipal throughways, which include Mission Road, Broadway Avenue, the business areas, and the school zones. Residential streets are maintained as required by OREG 23902, which is the minimum maintenance standards as part of our snow removal plan from the operational side. And then until recently, we didn't own the snow dump. We are in the process of purchasing it. And because of that, there have been non-municipal sort of outside contractors that have been using the snow dump as well, which is contributed to a high volume of large vehicles on that end of town. So then we took a quick look at what our municipal bylaws say in terms of how heavy vehicles are supposed to move throughout the community. So we have section 4.13.0. So what that section basically says is that all large heavy trucks need to follow our Schedule I snow removal route. However, there is a 0.3 of that section that says that this part of our bylaw does not apply to municipal vehicles that are undertaking work to improve the safety of the community. So that was sort of something that we want to take a look at quickly to sort of understand how we're supposed to be moving throughout our community. So when we looked at different options, we wanted to come up with something that improve the safety on Maple Street, reduce the amount of vehicles on Maple Street, but also allowed us to continue to operate and make sure that we can maintain the minimum residential standards. So we looked at sort of single faceted ideas and then ways to sort of combine them to put them together. So the first one was to reduce the posted speed. So that'd be going from 50 to 40. Again, lowering the speed limit, as we sort of discussed last time, helps to improve vehicle safety. We also looked at, instead of changing the posted speed, we could also limit the municipal vehicle speed, especially as it relates to heavy trucks, just as a way for us to control it within ourselves. And then we also looked at revising the snow removal route so that we eliminated heavy trucks using Maple Street as frequently as we do. And that we would then have them rerouted to the regular truck route. We looked at other alternatives that place limitations on snow dump use. Now that we as a municipality will own it, we can sort of control who is in and out, how often and when. We can revise the priority list of, if we want to continue to use Maple, do we need to look at increasing the frequency of snow removal there over other residential streets. And then we also looked at just the overall general increased presence of law enforcement, asking them to be more present in Maple Street, especially during like the snow removal season. So we did a criteria, we did an evaluation matrix. We looked at 4 sort of topics. Social looks at improving resident safety and resident mobility during the winter season. I just want to emphasize that resident mobility is not just people on Maple Street, it's everybody in town. Economic, so we looked at how feasible is it to do this within a reasonable budget and our ability to maintain or improve the level of service that we are currently functioning under. Environmental looks at vehicle emissions. We are approaching that push for the green economy, and I think as a small community it is really important for us, especially right now to looking at how we use gas in our community and especially us on the road. And then also we looked at impacts of the snow dump as well. And then politically, so just the ability to quickly implement that change and the ease of enforcing those changes. So we've got a couple of big tables here for you. So alternative one, just looking at it by itself, the posted speed, we gave it the green light. It lowers the speed and improves pedestrian safety, also maintains our current level of mobility. Economic, we really would suggest there will be a big financial change that comes with changing over of signage, which to us would require a traffic study. We can't manage what we don't have measured, right? So we need to be able to substantiate that change. And we also need to look at, just because it will be so costly, there will be some budget restructuring that we will need to do, which will take some extra effort on our part, just to be able to change that posted signage. Environmentally, we gave it a yellow. The slower speeds result in vehicles being on the road for longer periods of time. However, with being able to sort of maintain our existing snow route and sort of how we move within the community, we decided it wasn't worth a red, just because, we're still sort of maintaining that level of mobility and level of service. And then politically, it will take significant time just because of our budget constraints to make this happen. So it's one of those things of we need to look at reducing speeds in school zones, business areas, things like that first, and sort of start to spread out radially from there. We can't just prioritize a residential street over top of a school zone. Option two is reviewing the bylaw, revising it. It achieves essentially all the exact same things that the posted speed does, with the exception that there isn't a significant budget change to it. It is enforceable because it is a part of our bylaws. And again, just looking at the slower speed, maybe having a bit of an impact on our levels of service. We then looked at revising the snow removal route. So what that means is that vehicle traffic volumes are reduced, which is great for Maple Street. However, we could lose removal of snow productivity since we do focus on our residential street snow removal route is centric to our throughways. So if we're now prioritizing Maple Street, we are no longer now centered to the community. We're going that much, a little bit further to other sections of town to remove snow. So it just reduces productivity. It takes a little bit longer. And again, snow removal, slower speeds on longer routes, again, reduces our productivity, especially looking at the price of gas right now. I mean, that's something we can't avoid, but it is something that we do need to consider moving forward. We then looked at alternative 4, which is limiting the snow dump use, which is good on all fronts. We get to maintain the way we're operating right now, but then we also then control the volume of vehicles in and out of the snow dump. One of the things that Dan and I talked about is we're wondering if some of the contractors that have heavy trucks in town are aware of our bylaw, and whether or not they know that they're probably taking Maple as a shortcut as well. And so trying to make sure that they are aware of the routes they're supposed to take versus say following our trucks to the snow dump. So by limiting snow dump use, we sort of eliminate that high volume that we're seeing, because there is contractors outside of the municipality that are using that and have permission to use the snow dump at this time. Option number 5, if we revise the priority list, this really only benefits Maple Street. And from there, we gave that a red simply because we cannot prioritize a residential street above our throughways. We also can't, say above a school zone, things like that. So we need to really take a hard look at how we want, what precedent that sets in terms of looking at revising the priority list. And so let's see what else. And then, of course, increase law enforcement. We give it a green light on all fronts just because, again, it maintains our municipal operations, but it also improves safety and making sure that vehicles are traveling at the speeds they're supposed to be. So with all that being said, we realized that not one single part of those first 6 options are the only way to solve this problem. We can look at, combining the different options to come up with something that could be much more I guess it meets, I guess, the needs of Maple Street better, but also make sure that we as a municipality are operating in a way that is still sustainable to us. So when you look at options 1 and 4 at reducing the posted speed limit and reducing the use of the snow dump, it's great in terms of reducing volume, which would improve pedestrian safety. It's great in terms of reducing speed. However, again, it's one of those things where financially we're going to have to really take a look at how we're going to move ahead with changing over the signage, because it's really not that cheap. And also the extra time and labor will take for our staff as well. So we need to, you know, that's something that we will have to evaluate if that's something that council would like to take a deeper look at. We took one option, look at 2 and 4, which basically would allow us to have council amend the bylaw to have our vehicles go up 40, which achieves the safety aspect of making sure pedestrians and vehicle traffic and things like that are safe around our vehicles, but then also allows us to, control the snow down, the volume, things like that. It is the most cost-effective way to be able to implement this change and quickly, because bylaws can be passed by you guys on a bi-weekly basis, which is really good for us. So, or more than that, I'm not entirely sure how quickly bylaws can be passed, but we looked at alternatives 1 and 5 and then 2 and 5. So again, that's the posted speed and then reprioritizing the snow route, or using the bylaw and then reprioritizing the snow route. So looking at those, I think we can see that if we flip back to the other slide, they're just not as favorable as moving forward with the bylaw amendment and the snow dump use limitations. So what we would like to recommend to council to try out for next season is, based on our evaluations, we would like to see the bylaw amended to the 40 kilometers an hour. Let's try it, see what we can do with our heavy vehicles. And then also limiting the snow dump use means that we won't have outside contractors using it for their snow removal purposes, which means they are taking it elsewhere. So we improve safety by pursuing alternatives 2 and 4, because we own the snow dump, and again, we'll be controlling that use. And then amending the bylaw reduces the speed of the trucks, which improves safety. It's most economical, as the bylaw amendment won't necessarily require some budget restructuring on our end. We will have to take a really hard look at what it's going to cost to do that. And I think a traffic study is one of the best ways to be able to substantiate that change in the budget. And then we'll have minimal additional environmental impacts. Slower speeds will not be as hard on our fuel economy as, say, revising the longer route. But another thing to look at too is that less heavy truck traffic reduces the need to prioritize Maple Street in the same way as some of our throughways. And something I didn't put in here, but even just thinking about how less frequent use of our snow dump is ultimately going to be better for the environmental area of the snow dump. When you think of how much garbage and things get swept up into the snow and then left there, right? So things to think about when it comes to areas of the community. And then finally, it'll be easily implemented just because we can do that quickly here. And again, outside contractor use, we can make sure that that is something that's easily achievable for us, making sure that we regulate that amongst ourselves here in this part of the town. So if we reduce the posted speed to the 40 kilometers an hour, as I mentioned before, it is just a matter of having a study done, hopefully targeted during the winter season, so that way we can get a real sense of what it is that road use looks like. And then if they are recommended by the study, we can look at taking a look at our budget and what it would take to do a phased approach in replacing the signs throughout the community to improve the overall safety of everybody in Wawa. So if Mayor and Council, you have any questions for Dan or Ryan? I guess now would be the time.
Yeah. I've been here for a long time, all of a sudden, it's a problem. Ready for originating. They want to cut it down from 50 to 40. To save money. Are you going to save money? Or will it pay more in overtime? All the snow away.
And that's something that, I
don't think that's how it goes. You guys are in charge of these people. those trucks rolling. I had the snowblower sitting there 20 minutes, or 2 trucks for 10 minutes. Doesn't make sense. I sat there, went back, I studied. 2 trucks hauling, snowblower sitting there 10 minutes running. I hear a couple of trucks, get it moving. That 50 and 20, I don't think it's gonna help, so I see what proves to be there's something else different that I'm missing. Please help me out here. Go ahead.
I'm a little bit worried about the man, because I know the man is a long, slow, time. I don't know how they're going to take this. Did you ever consider using Churchill? Like, not Churchill. Overlap,
Birch,
okay? No, not Birch. Where the,
Regina,
yes, thanks, Lori. I'm nervous. Regina Avenue, would that be better? Like all the guys would have to do is go down and turn left, right? There's very little people that live on Regina. It's just a thought.
So you're just moving one problem from one side to another?
Yeah, except there's only about 6 houses on Regina. And I don't know if you're ever keep
there's more than that.
Pardon me?
There's more than 6 homes on Regina.
Oh, I didn't realize there was that. And how many homes would it be compared to Maple?
There's probably about 20 homes compared to Maple. I couldn't tell you right now. And I'm talking from Regina at Sioux College down, including the 10 units of Makwa. There's 10
Okay,
units for
just-
Makwa.
It was just a thought. I thought Regina might be a better group. Because I didn't think there was as many houses. And, that's all I have.
Rebecca, I really like that you took an evidence-based approach and just tried to really kind of watch the percentage with options. So thank you for that. I recognize that this is a kind of a sticky situation where we're not going to be able to please everyone if we, change the truck route from Maple to Birch, or we have to drive down somebody's residential street. And I understand that that's not an ideal situation. So I recognize that it's a sensitive one. I like the idea of putting it in a bylaw to reduce the speed limit, because then we have something to say to the residents of any of those streets. We're taking concrete actions to, we listen to your objections. We're taking concrete actions to move forward and to better ourselves. I also like the idea of a traffic study, because I think that 50 kilometers an hour is too fast. It's too fast on Maple Street. It's too fast on Hardy Avenue where I live. It's too fast everywhere. It shouldn't be the same speed limit on Maple Street as it is on Mission Road. It's too fast. It's probably not, we can save that for another day. And I understand that there's financial implications. We might need to get funding or something. So thank you for that. I'm just trying to go back to, and I really, really like the idea of lifting the snow belt, because I understand there's probably a handful of contractors that use that. So whereas it might be easy to say, municipality is the main cause of the problem, where if we take all of the contractors out of the equation, that is probably the biggest contributing factor to this problem. So whether or not we reduce the speed limit by bylaw or not, that's probably going to be the big factor there. So thank you for that. I really agree with your alternative review of 2 and 4. I think that's going to be a big thing, and I really hope that if we ask the residents of Maple Street to just kind of work with us. Last year we all know, was a really hard year for snow. And hopefully next year, we won't have this much problems with snow, and I think that they'll work with us.
Anybody else? Come back. Oh, all right.
Go back to this 40 mile, you're dealing just with snow removal. Now you want to cut 40 all over town, all of that. That's what your intentions are.
No, so the bylaw revision would be just for the municipal heavy trucks. If though that the community decided that residential streets 50 posted 50 was too fast, there are lots of communities, I know the one that I came from down south, they are moving towards a 40 km/h residential street speed limit. So it is something to think about, maybe not right now, but a bylaw for our vehicles for next season to try to work with the concerns of all residents, especially the ones on Maple Street. It could just be, that ticket we need to start showing them that we are making that effort and that we are hearing them and that we do want to work with them and sort of fixing the problems that they're facing.
But you don't know what the increase to our house is going to be as yet. That's what you expect.
No, until after we do a traffic study, we would be for sure, we wouldn't know that, but we can, a study could be used to determine that cost. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Hi, Rebecca. When we talked last time about it, we talked about the truck route.
Mhm.
And you have a designated truck route.
There is one for heavy vehicles that use the municipality, but municipal vehicles are currently exempt from that as long as they are doing work within the community.
Okay, I can see sometimes having to go down the residential and that, but this is all about safety.
Mhm.
And I mean, if you have trucks and trucks can speed, whether you tell them to go 40, whether you tell them to go 20, they're gonna speed, they're gonna speed. All it's gonna take is one. So it's gotta be about the safety. So we have to come up with a plan that's gonna be good for everybody in town. And I'm not just Maple Street. I mean, we saw the snowbanks but we all have it. But if a truck was speeding down there and a child ran out beside that, they're not gonna be able to stop. So trying to keep them off the residential, to me, would make more sense. And the cost of fuel and everything, we don't live in a big city. Wall is pretty small. And yes, it might be a little bit more of a cost, but it's all about the safety.
I guess the one thing we have to consider though too is that regardless of how we get to the snow dump, there are residents on all streets to get to the snow dump. So that is something that we need to think about when we move forward.
I get that, but Maple was never a truck route.
I guess essentially, yeah, as identified in the bylaw, yes.
That's all I'm saying. Like, it's gotta be the extra money to go a little extra further. Can't take, I don't know, a life, like, could possibly be the difference. Staying away from those, especially because there are a lot of children in that area. I don't know, that's just my opinion.
For sure.
Okay, I think that was study was well done. Like make a few comments. I'm not really a fan of not allowing the contractors up there because you're just moving the problem somewhere else. I think we have to work with them because if they haul from the hospital and then you won't allow them to go there, now they're going through the whole town. Get out of town. So you increase their traffic, cut yours down. So we got to take a look at that, work it with them, obeying the same rules and regulations that our municipality trucks do. So I'm not a fan of that. We've talked about this school zone traffic study for a while now. I think we need to complete that because we cannot logistically or financially change all the signs in town with 40 kilometers at one time. We can do zones, and I think financially we can probably afford it. But I think it was the school zones that we were looking at. And I think on that thought, we're also including all those streets, Maple, that whole area back there. So I think that should be looked at first. And I know we've got Bill made a couple good points there, Councilor Jason. Trying to get to the snow dump and use practicability. If you go a long haul, you only got one truck. There's one person sitting in the blower and one sitting in the truck. They're sitting there for 20 minutes for the truck to come back. So, I mean, that's the matter of logistics and the planning. That day, you maybe move everybody on snow removal. I don't know. That's something you guys will have to figure out. But at this point, I think we need to try something. We need to show proactive. I agree with Councilor Cannon as well. I don't think we should, safety should be the first and foremost. There's lots of children on Maple. You know, we've got to consider that. We did take into consideration last year, I think we cut their banks out first on Maple Street too. So we did show some, again, proactiveness. But I think we need to go back and look at your analysis again. And I think we need to include the truck contractors or talk to the contractors first, get their feedback. So we can put that in there because you're just gonna move the problem there. I think Provo's got more trucks than we got. So if they have 8 trucks hauling away on a Tuesday from the hospital somewhere else, and they gotta go now to where, I don't know. They're gonna be going through the whole town rather than following one road.
Right, but as an outside contractor not hired by us to do our snow removal, they'll have to follow the heavy truck route.
Yes, at 50 kilometers an hour.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just something I consider, working with,
For sure.
just slow their traffic down as well.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. I think it's well done. I think it's the first kick at the can is there. I think we need to kick the can a little more and come up with another presentation, including all the things that the councilors have included, and come back and hopefully we've got time. So we need to change a couple of bylaws or do this up before winter. We still got time. So I don't know what the rest of the councilors are thinking about that.
Just one more comment. You have to understand that if you want the snow removed from the streets, you have to put up with some inconvenience. I mean, yes, everybody here has done that, has a job, take yourself. But you have to want the snow removed. We're gonna have to come back on this. Everybody has some great ideas here. That's why we're here. All working together. Thank you.
The traffic study, has it been looked at yet or is it in progress or?
No, we don't have.
No, Mayor, and as Rebecca points out in her presentation, there is not a traffic study for that particular street or area. And what we're recommending tonight is that would have to be done in the winter if council wants to understand the exact traffic and the impacts of trucks and you know, how much traffic volume and residential use of that street is being done. We can certainly start a traffic study now, but it's not going to demonstrate a true picture for council. So if council directs a traffic study, that would be something that we would probably do at the December, maybe January, February timeframe. There is no traffic study done at this time.
I thought we looked at for the whole school zone.
There's a traffic study for the school zone. Maple Street is not part of the school zone.
Okay, that's the question. Yeah, well, I mean, they can figure it out anyways. They've got all statistics when it comes to the traffic, their traffic, because you only have so many trucks. You only have so many people.
But a traffic study would look at what other trucks, what other cars, what other school buses. It would look at the full picture to determine how much traffic is flowing, which directions, how often, what times of day are the most used. And again, council could direct that we do a traffic study now, but it would make more sense to understand the impact of our trucks doing snow removal and using that route to do the traffic study in the winter.
Okay, I would agree with that. I mean, you bring it back in the report as staff, back to council again. They recommend we do something like that. And I think council would be on board for that.
Can I just ask one quick question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I forget that. you say are you going to tell the trucks to slow down to 40 kilometers an hour?
Yeah, and
What
so,
about the cars?
so that's where, by putting in the bylaw, to have our vehicles go to 40, that for us is enforceable now through the law. The posted speed would be what the rest of the vehicles could move at, let's say a passenger vehicle. But if those vehicles are speeding, that is a law enforcement issue.
And we still have the speed spy, or what we call it there.
Yes.
We haven't, I don't think we've used it in the last while, so. We need to put that.
Well,
back.
we can ask the local police force to do a study for a time frame with the speed spy. Again, depending on council's direction, we can do that at any time. But for council and the community fully understand this matter that seems to arise more out of concern for residents in the winter, it would be best done to demonstrate to council the impact of speeding in the winter then. But we can certainly, Mayor, do that at any time. I would just like to remind council that at our doing and without warning to our staff, we did have the police patrol and monitor the speed on that road during the winter, I believe at 2 occasions. And no speeding was demonstrated during the police review of the matter, but a speed spy could certainly, I believe it's in working condition, we could ask the police to do that anytime.
Okay, at this point, I don't think we solved this problem. We need to take a look at it again and come back and do that once more. And then we'll go ahead, make some solid recommendations. Number one, I mean, there's nothing wrong with implementing a bylaw for our trucks and to go to 40 kilometers an hour. I mean, that's a well done rate. And whatever else we can do to at least show steps that we're progressing, we're going to try and remedy this problem. But
Can I, so the residents of Maple Street, do you understand that we do take this seriously? And I recommend that we are we able to do that tonight? At least take that step and then let them know that we will conduct a traffic study in the winter. Or at least it's our intention. I mean, that'll certainly have to be, discussed with the new mayor and council next term. We can also perhaps let them know that, it'll be discussed, to limit snow dump use when the municipality owns it. But I think sending a correspondence out to the family who sent the letter or who spearheaded the correspondence would be greatly appreciated. Excuse me.
no, that's good. We're trying to show proactiveness, which is great. And I hopefully, when we do something like this, do we have to go through 3 meetings if you change the bylaw to 40 kilometers an hour for our vehicles?
Absolutely,
So
Mayor.
we want to do that before.
That would be at the next council meeting. We weren't sure of council direction tonight, so we could bring forward the bylaw to reduce the speed limit to 40 for our vehicles in that area on the June 7th meeting. And council would vote on that. And if approved, then we could advise the residents. And I believe I'm hearing consensus from council, which we could put in a motion on June 7th that council directs that staff undertake a traffic study this 22-23 winter season. So we could have a motion on the June 7th again that council could vote on. And if consensus and approved, then council, that's clear direction that we could write back to the residents that those are the steps we're taking and other steps are under consideration for the future.
And I would think that we would go 40 kilometers an hour. 3 hours right here.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's really good. So that would, that show the community that we're doing something. Agreed on that? Okay, we'll bring that forward. Okay, I think we're melting the snow. Okay, we'll go on to Lost my place here. Adoption minutes? None? Okay, business horizon previously, nothing. Okay, we'll move on to new business. We'll move into 7.1. A truck is going to do 40 kilometers an hour. We'll put a governor on it.
Yes. Can I speak to it? Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. So on April 13th, infrastructure put a request for tender into bids and tenders. We put it out for 4 weeks, received it back on May 5th. We did have a lot of contractors call us and ask us questions about the truck tender, but we only received one tender from Maximum Truck Center in Thunder Bay. They met all of our requirements and our timeline, but the truck price come in around $16,000 over budget. The other tenders or the other contractors that come in met the tender requirements, but they couldn't meet their timelines. They were looking at trucks for 2024, not even 23, 24, so 2 years. So with that in mind, we're asking that with the rising prices and everything moving forward, we're asking that you approve the extra money to purchase this new truck. Is there any questions?
Dan, are you replacing that orange thing?
Yes.
I'll agree with it then, and when the dish doesn't come back orange.
No, Bill, it's already painted white.
I got one question when it comes to the budget. We budgeted $350,000 for this vehicle. That's before tax or after tax?
And that includes normally a tax, but rebated. So the municipality gets about 87% back on the tax. So it includes the net tax of what we have to pay, because we get a rebate back for the rest. So it's supposed to cover 100% of the actual costs, including our share of the tax.
Okay, any other questions on that? That'll come back up in the,
It's on tonight? Yes, it's on tonight.
okay. Okay, we'll move on to 7.2. Alex, report for months of March and April.
Okay, it won't take too long. March was a much better month than we've had in a long time. April was even better. We were able to host some more normal activities. They weren't fully normal yet in terms of participation, but they were getting pretty close. Very end of the season, we hosted Tournament of Champions, which we haven't done in a long time. It went super, super well. So really thankful to all the volunteers who organized that. And it was really good for our community. We saw some good economic impact, which I identified in the report, as well as just having a whole bunch of people come into the community center again, was really, really nice. It's been 2 years and it's been a really long time for us as staff. That's what we're really there for. We haven't been able to do that for a while. So definitely want to highlight that at the very start of the report, how grateful we are that things are slowly toning down and we're getting back to normal. A couple updates on capital projects. You can see just in that section, we're rolling on a couple of the upgrades that we have at the community center. We've been able to award a couple contracts as part of that larger budget, and things are coming in slightly under budget, which is pretty good for us. We've got a couple more to do in terms of awarding contracts, including one that's going to have to come back to council for flooring. Other than that, we've done some stuff with Broadway beautification. You can see benches and cans are coming out. We received those in. And then we had to reevaluate a little bit what we're doing for tractor reels, basically because the price has gone up so much. We think it's a little ridiculous. So we're working on fixing the reels and making them last 5 or 6 more years and taking that money and putting it in the bank. I've also given you guys some statistics around usage for March and April. We had the chance to really put down some of the money we've made, the usage, things like that for people to refer to, as well as being able to host the events that we hosted. I've got a list of about 10 or 12 special events that we were actually able to do in March and the start of April, which again, like I said, is really nice. And we're really happy to have that back, both on the revenue side to help us recover from the loss of revenue that we've had over COVID, but also just to have people in the building again. Other than that, basically, once we shut down, it was all hands towards getting the Tourist Information Center open. So that's been the last couple of weeks of our work, including into May. And we're opening that on Friday. So you guys are all welcome to come out. It's just really nice to, again, be back to doing some more normal stuff, having that facility open. The parking lot the last couple of weeks since the snow has melted and these guys came and swept, it's been basically packed the whole time. So it's great to see people coming back. I also included some stats on what we do for social media, including 15 to 16,000 page views a month on our Wawa Recreation Facebook page. So we're finding that to be fairly effective at getting the word out. And obviously we combine that with traditional media as well. And I've included all of the posters and advertising and stuff in some of the appendices for what we do on a regular basis. Other than that, any questions about what's going on?
Is that covering tourism too?
Sure, I can add to that. I mean, obviously, right now, the main thing is to reopen the Tourist Information Center. So we've hired a tourism coordinator on a contract position. We've also gotten funding for a tourism marketing intern through the NOHFC, which we're in the process of hiring right now. And that is spooling a lot of that stuff back up. So the main focus of the tourism coordinator right now is just on the Tourist Information Center, reopening it. After 2 years, you can imagine how much work needs to be done. It's not like we just put out the same brochures. We got to get all new stuff in, and getting stuff is a big challenge right now. Everything from t-shirts to mugs to that sort of stuff. It's taking a lot longer than it used to. So basically she's been hard at work at that. We've hired our summer students for the year. We're doing some training this weekend. So, you know, I'm going to be out there all weekend. She'll be out there all weekend, getting people in, talking to people, you know, really looking forward to, again, having that place open again. And then later on in the summer, as the Tourist Information Center spools up, as we get our marketing person in, we're going to add some more of our other tourism activities, which is honestly right in time for when we start to do our bigger marketing outside of our community, which is in that September range.
Right, Counselor?
Now, it's just a quick question. When is the deadline for tourists? Because it used to be walking facilities. Or is it open all night?
So we have the Tourist Information Center washrooms open right now. We opened them basically as soon as we could. Other washroom facilities in our community are going to be opening this weekend and next weekend.
Yes, I was just working across the street from, and we got a lot of people letting me use a washroom that will be carried. I'm sending to the community center.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. We did have a lot of complaints from some of our local businesses. Probably the first week of May is when we had the most complaints because the parking lot wasn't open yet. We had a lot of snow in the parking lot still. And we had some plumbing issues that we were waiting for a plumber to come up and fix. So that was all something that was taken care of that second and third week of May. And so we opened it as soon as we can. And, you know, I've had a couple calls from those same businesses saying, hey, we're so grateful now that we're not getting overwhelmed. So the rest of the facilities are obviously in the works and they will be, you know, that's what we're doing this week essentially is opening some of those places.
Thank you so much.
Oh, Scenic High Falls, sure, yeah. So Scenic High Falls, I was just in touch with our contractor who's working on it. He says they'll be operational tomorrow as well.
Go ahead.
I appreciate your reports very much. And what's the rink doing this summer?
Well, everything from hosting a circus, which was at the start of May, to hosting some of our recreation programs. So we're putting up the half ice boards. We're going to try and run some ball hockey in there. We've ordered some things for pickleball to pick up pickleball in there. So 3 or 4 different rec activities depending on any particular day. And that schedule will come out in the next couple of weeks.
Is there any baseball or soccer or any of that going on?
Yeah, we're trying to plan it right now. So youth baseball and soccer is easier for us because we get funding from the summer experience program for a summer recreation programmer. So that's like a summer student who will go out and run those youth programs. In terms of adult programs, there's nobody who wants to run the baseball league anymore. So we're going to try and do a pickup baseball this year to try and generate some interest and then see if we can find someone to actually like take it on and run with it.
You will.
I hope so.
Go ahead, Counselor.
I had a couple of people approach me about the races.
Mhm.
Is that on or is that still off?
That's still off, yeah. So right now, we've put out a couple calls for volunteers. We need a volunteer committee. We've only got 2 people left on the volunteer committee. There's about 14 positions. So without a volunteer committee to run those races, they can't happen. I can't do it all myself. So certainly we'll put a call out in the next couple of weeks again. Now that it's summertime, hopefully people are more interested in the race circuit starts up again to see if we can get volunteers from our community who will sit on that committee. But very similar to the ice fishing derby, it takes about 6 to 8 months to organize with that many people. So without that many people, we just won't be able to do it.
Okay, I'll sum it up here with a couple of questions. These improvements you're making with the heaters and the glycol pump and a few other that. Is there earmarked 130,000 for different repairs? That all comes out of that?
Yeah, and that's funded through federal gas tax.
Okay, good. And the flooring's in the works right now?
Yeah, the flooring, so we've received one submission for our RFP. I'm working with the contractor right now to cut the price down a little bit. So things like, hey, you know what, us as staff will remove the floor and we'll prep the surface so they don't have to do it to try and cut the cost down a little bit. So far, everything is within budget, but we're just trying to make those final adjustments and also settle on a floor to make sure that it's going to work for our users.
One other thought was, we've been talking this for a couple of years now. Yeah, MMCC, the funding application for the big project. Where is that at?
So we received a report from our engineer with about a $3 million recommendation for just HVAC. We had a talk as the finance staff, and that $3 million is just too much to do just HVAC with. $3 million was about our price to do everything, like the roof and the rest of the floors and everything included. So I'm working with our refrigeration company right now. They're analyzing that report to get me a bit better costing and to pare it down a little bit to try and do what we really need to do for the HVAC without some of the added extras. So the report was really geared toward a very specific funding application through ICIP, and that required you to offset a minimum of 25% of greenhouse gases. So we had to use some pretty creative solutions because right now we're on electric and our electric is from the dams. So we don't actually generate that much greenhouse gas compared to like an oil-fired plant or something like that. So they had to put in a lot of things like heat recovery off of the plant, some wet loops, things like that to really get that number to 25%. So we're basically no longer considering that specific funding application because it's just too onerous for us to maintain that type of equipment and go with a little bit more of the, I wouldn't call it a Cadillac solution quite yet, but the more advanced solution when we could look at other funding that didn't have that greenhouse gas offset requirement and try and get, you know, a similar $3 million project done, but instead of just doing HVAC to do the rest of the show. So we're in talks right now with FedNor and the NOHFC to try and make that happen. But obviously that set us back because we were intending on applying to ICIP directly and that would have covered 80%. So we might have been able to get it all done in one shot. Whereas now we're going to have to go after a couple of different funding sources to make it all happen.
So when can we expect an application? When?
Well, it's really up to us talking to FedNor. We're in negotiations with them right now about what program will fit into. The NOHFC application is ready to go, but it only covers about $1 million. And so we can't afford to put in our own million, much less 2 million. So we're trying to get it 80 to 90%, and that's going to require a couple of other funders. So NOHFC is ready to go, but with the RIT drop, we're not really harming ourselves by waiting because they can't touch it anyways until after the provincial election. And so that buys us a little bit of time to negotiate with FedNor. So if you're looking for a specific date, what do you say, September-ish?
The reason why I'm asking is because
That's a little
late, the more we push it out,
You're the boss.
the more we're at risk. And I mean, we are at risk with that community center. So if we keep pushing on there year and year, we're gonna be out one day.
Mhm.
We're gonna be not look good. So I think we need to do whatever we can or get whatever we can and start repairing that place. Because it's the only building we got in town. It's the only facility we got to use. I mean, we got the tick, but it goes out for the winter, but there's nothing else. I don't think they appreciate the outdoor rinks for, well, they might if we get one. But anyways, yeah, so no, I think the sooner we get that in, the better. I mean, that's a real important piece of the puzzle to the community.
Absolutely.
So, I just want to emphasize that. Any other questions?
I do.
Oh, go ahead.
I love looking at all your programs that you have set up. This busker, is that gonna be for all the Goose Nest markets?
That's the hope. Yeah, we like, so with the Goose Nest markets, especially the regular ones that we're having every Saturday, we really like to have the usual kind of makers, bakers, growers as a focus. We're trying to have at least one food vendor there where you can actually like eat food there instead of take it home, and one musician of some kind. So just give it a really good atmosphere. So that's the goal. Will we be successful at every single event? I don't know if there's that many musicians in town, but we're gonna find out.
What's the deal with lines? Also, one other question. I got a couple of calls, change the subject to the granny doors that are down at the marina.
Okay.
Some of them are damaged
Mhm.
from the last flood. What are the plans for the granny doors?
So those.
That building is gonna come down, isn't it?
Those doors have all been scanned. And so those were the original wood ones. So I have the digital versions of them.
Okay.
Those original wood ones were sitting in Roses Beach before we tore it down. So when we tore it down, I said, okay, you know what? We haven't used these. We can't put them outside because they're wood. So they're just going to get destroyed. So I brought that to the Heritage Committee and said, hey, we either need to find an indoor space for them or we need to put them in the dump, as sad as that is, right? They're all scanned in, so we have the digital footprints of them. At that time, the Heritage Committee said, hey, you know what? We really like them to be displayed. Sure, even if there isn't an indoor space for them, they go outside, we'll see how long they last, right? So that's what we settled on. So we put them outside, in my mind, knowing full well that they were going to last, 3 to 5 years, because they're just wood, there's just paint on them, they're not protected in any special way. So we'll go down there and the ones that look really bad, we'll take down, but there's no plans to do repairs or anything like that to them that I have.
Okay, yeah, it's just a part of the history, I mean, and to see it, people saying, that, and I walked over there to look,
Mhm.
and they are damaged from the last flood.
100%.
And then if we would have got flooded out again this time, they would have been gone like that.
Yeah.
But at least you have the digital, so
Yeah, and
that's what I'll tell
a lot of those wooden doors were reproduced, because we used to mount those wooden doors and take them down every year. It was a whole project, right? And a lot of those were reproduced on metal, and so they just stay up permanently year round. So it's not like they're going to be lost forever. I mean, sure, they're originals, and it might be a little sad to lose them, but we'll always have that in our community, and we've got the ability to reuse it.
Okay, thanks, Al.
Okay, want to move on to anything else on those subjects? We'll move on to 10.3, the fitness passes. Go ahead.
Okay, so this is super easy. We used to have a 10 pass at the community center. When we upgraded to the 24-hour system, it was promised that we could have that again. When they installed it, it didn't have it. There was a recent software update. Now we've got that capacity back again, so we'd just like to add it back to the schedule fees. That's it.
Pretty simple. Go ahead.
Awesome.
Okay. Move on to zoning camera. Minutes arising from the closed session now. Next meeting date will be Tuesday, June 7th. Adjournment, close the meeting at 7:39. Can I get a mover? Councilor Pion. Adjourn this meeting and move on to the regular council meeting. Open this meeting at 7:40, regular council meeting. We'll call to order, all members are present, staff still here. Disclosure of peculiar interest. Any? Seeing none. Approval of agenda, we got a resolution.
Moved by Councillor Pilon, seconded by Councillor Shasel, resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council scheduled for Tuesday, May 17th, 2022 be approved as amended.
All in favor? Motion carried. Presentations. Now, so it's given forward is, you have an announcement? Okay, we'll go back to the floor. Go ahead.
I've been trying to do this and I keep missing out on it. Daniel, I really want you to listen to this. I had a meeting with the new lady they hired at the hospital to get doctors. I can't tell you the work that is being done. She had 6 people on the list for doctors. Now she has 19 doctors for local. She's working very hard on a couple that are thinking of coming to Wawa. But that's not all she's done. She put a tourism twist to her presentation. They have a fantastic video that they bring to their, I can't tell you how, this is Anne Fenton, and she's doing a wonderful job. And really, really, if you ever see her on the street, just think, just tell her she's doing a wonderful job. She's totally booked for the next 5 months. And like none of our doctors have to worry. She's working with the doctors if they want an emergency doctor. I spent an hour and a half with her, and I was just mesmerized. But we are in very good hands.
Thank you for that. We are so lucky in this town to have great volunteers and people that step up to the plate and help the community out. So thank you. Okay, with announcements moving forth, those are just announcements. That's for meetings and things that's happening around town. 6 adoption minutes. Correspondence. Again, we'll talk about things for the community and correspondence. The community safety and well-being plan was completed, and we have a letter thanking the community for getting it done and putting it forward. Now we just gotta keep to the plan. So, and I got also, there's some more information on asset management. Go to consent agenda. Resolution for that.
Moved by Councillor Shasel, seconded by Councillor Pilon, resolved that the items listed under the consent agenda, item 8.2 and 8.3, be approved as recommended.
All in favor? Carried. Staff reports. Receive staff reports.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Hatfield, resolved that the Council of the Corporation of Municipality of Wawa does hereby receive staff report AP 2022-04, report for the months of March and April 2022, a copy of which is attached here too.
All in favor? Motion carried. Move on to number 11, new business, award tender for the tandem truck.
Moved by Councillor Pilon, seconded, I can't see you, so sorry. Moved by Councillor Pilon, seconded by Councillor Shasel, whereas the municipality of Wawa issued a request for tenders for a tandem plow truck complete with snow removal equipment, and whereas staff only received 1 tender from Maxim Truck and Trailer in the amount of $364,000 plus HST, that now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of Municipality of Wawa does hereby accept staff recommendation and approve the award of RFT 2022-01, supply and delivery of fully equipped tandem plow truck to Maxim Truck and Trailer, PO Box 10428, 125 Conservation Road, Thunder Bay, and further approve that $200,000 be taken from equipment Public Works Reserve and the remainder $164,000 from general capital reserves.
questions on that? All in favor? Motion carries. Notice of bylaw?
Moved by Councillor Chasson, seconded by Councillor Hatfield, resolved that the following bylaws be introduced and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, and that the mayor and deputy clerk do sign and seal the same. Any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding. Bylaw number 3504-22 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the 17th day of May, 2022. Bylaw number 3505-22 to enter into a lease agreement with Michoacan First Nation for the use of a portion of 3 Maple Street for the purposes of a cultural and wellness center. Bylaw number 3506-22 to enter into agreement with Circle Canada Inc. to accommodate group education or driver interview sessions. Bylaw number 3507-22 to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the townships of Dubreuilville, White River, and Hornepayne to provide the services of an asset management coordinator for the period May 2022 to April 2024. Bylaw number 3508-22 to authorize the sale of municipal land described as Lot H on Walker Engineering Drawing number A1 2007-32-G1 and known as 22 White Drive to M. McIntyre Trucking, Inc. Bylaw number 3509-22 to repeal bylaw number 771-91 and to designate the whole of the municipality Wawa as a site plan control area. Bylaw number 3510-22 to amend bylaw number 2821-15 as amended, being the zoning bylaw for the municipality of Wawa with respect to lands located at 25 Broadway Avenue, described legally as Plan M-27 Lot 150, Parcel 105 AWS, PIN number 31169-0248, in the geographic township of McMurray in the municipality of Wawa in the district of Algoma.
All in favor? Motion carries. Get to closed session at 7:47.
Yeah, we want to start.
Okay, we got a resolution to. Resolution to close the meeting.
Resolve that, sorry, moved by Councillor Hatfield, second by Councillor Cannon. Resolve that the meeting close at 8:08 PM.
All in favor? Motion carried. Thank you very much, everybody.